Most travelers never make it here. The Faroe Islands sit isolated in the North Atlantic, cloaked in mist and mystery, a place where sheep outnumber people and silence echoes louder than traffic. But hidden in this remoteness lies a raw, untamed beauty. This isn't your typical European getaway, it's wilder, quieter, almost forgotten by time. Let me take you there. Picture this: vertical cliffs rising straight from the sea, brushed by low clouds as puffins glide effortlessly below. Gassadala, a remote village once accessible only by foot, now reveals a waterfall that spills into the Atlantic like a secret whispered to the ocean. Each gust of wind feels sacred. Each view an untouched masterpiece. Here, nature speaks louder than words. The Faroese live in rhythm with the weather, and the wind is their constant companion. Here, stories are passed down in song, meals are caught fresh from the sea, and strangers are still welcomed like kin. Erik, a local fisherman, once told me, "You don't visit the Faroes, you earn them." And perhaps that's what makes them unforgettable. On the island of Kalsui, towering sea stacks rise like stone sentinels. One of them, Kalla Lighthouse, stands alone, defying wind and sea, perched at the edge of everything. Standing there feels like entering a cathedral built by giants. The only sound is the roar of waves below. It's humbling and somehow holy. I remember one evening, the fog rolled in like a living thing. It swallowed the hills, the paths, the sound, until only the distant echo of a flute remained. A young woman played from her rooftop, invisible in the mist. Locals call it the fog's lullaby. I just stood there, frozen, because for a moment the entire island seemed to breathe. In the Faroe Islands, silence is not emptiness, it's presence. You begin to hear things differently: the flap of wings, the crackle of distant rain, your own breath. Erik once said, "Silence here isn't quiet, it's alive." And when you finally stop filling it with words, you start to understand what the islands have been saying all along. The Faroese don't check the weather, they live inside it. One moment, the sun paints everything gold. The next, the sky weeps and then smiles again. It's unpredictable, unforgiving, and absolutely alive. You don't control your plans here, the wind does. And maybe that's the beauty of it, letting go, and letting the islands lead. Every cliff, every stone here carries a story. The seal woman of Mikladala, the troll of Trollknúfinga. To outsiders, they're myths. But to the Faroese, they're memories, living things that shape the land and the way they walk it. And when you sit beside Erik and hear the tale, you start to feel the ground breathe beneath you. Isolation isn't loneliness here, it's art. The Faroese build beauty from solitude. In small homes, they knit stories into sweaters, compose ballads that echo across generations, and paint silence in colors the rest of us forget to see. In a loud world, this kind of quiet, this kind of creation is radical. Erik told me about the old days when the only connection between islands was the postman and the sea. He remembers watching from the shore, waiting for a tiny boat to appear through storm and spray. Sometimes it didn't come. Sometimes it brought more than letters. It brought news that changed everything. That memory still stirs in his voice. In villages like Saxon, the past isn't preserved, it's lived. Turf-roofed homes blend into the hillside, as if grown from the earth itself. Inside, the scent of burning peat and fresh bread fills the air. The walls whisper stories, older than most countries. Here, tradition isn't nostalgia, it's identity. In the Faroes, preservation is survival. They salt the fish, dry the lamb, and hang them in the wind. Not for flavor, but for winter. Erik showed me racks of fermented skirpikjot, wind-dried lamb, that tells 1,000 stories with one bite. It's not just food, it's history, salted, smoked, and remembered. Driving in the Faroes feels like wandering through a myth. Narrow roads cling to cliff edges, disappearing into tunnels hand-carved through mountains. There are no billboards, no fences, just you, the sea, and what feels like the end of the world. And sometimes, the road doesn't end at a destination. It ends at a view that changes you. The grinder drop, the whale hunt, is controversial, even within the Faroes. Erik doesn't romanticize it. He remembers blood in the water, silence on the shore, and debates over tradition and change. Some call it heritage, others horror. But here's what's certain. It forces questions few places dare to ask. What do we keep, and what do we let go? Today, the Faroes stand between two tides, ancient tradition and modern momentum. There's Wi-Fi in every home, but sheep still roam the streets. Global visitors bring drones and dollars. But local children still learn old ballads by firelight. And in that tension between past and future, the islands find their balance. Lake Sorvigsvatn appears to float above the ocean, a natural illusion sculpted by cliffs and perspective. Standing at its edge, the wind howling, you question what's real. Locals say it guards secrets, and seeing it is like being let in on one. It's not just a photo opportunity. It's proof that nature still knows how to deceive and enchant. The ocean doesn't whisper here, it sings. Not softly, but like a choir of ancient voices echoing off stone. It tells stories of storms, of shipwrecks, of resilience. Erik says the sea is both enemy and friend. It feeds, it takes, it teaches. Stand near it long enough, and you start to listen with more than just your ears. Every Faroese sweater is a map, a pattern passed through generations. The colors tell of the sea, the stone, the sky, and the sheep that make them warm. Women like Erik's sister still knit by hand, shaping memory into fabric. Wearing one isn't fashion, it's belonging. It wraps you in heritage. In summer, the sun barely sets. The Faroe Islands glow in a golden twilight that stretches into midnight. It's as if the land refuses to sleep, everything lingers. Light, silence, wonder. You lose track of time. And maybe that's the gift, not chasing minutes, but embracing moments that feel like they never end. Not everyone belongs in the Faroes. The weather tests you, the silence challenges you, the remoteness humbles you. But if you're willing to listen, to wait, to feel, the islands might accept you. Erik once said, "You don't choose to stay here, the islands decide if you're meant to." And when they do, you never leave the same. The storms in the Faroe Islands aren't just weather, they're rituals. Waves crash with the force of memory. Winds tear through with the clarity of truth. Erik once said storms here shape more than the coastline, they shape the people. You don't brace against them. You bow and let them carve you into someone new. There are 18 islands in the Faroes, some inhabited, some untouched. Sleater-at-Endure rises highest, while Mykines whispers quietly in the mist. These are lands where the edges matter more than the centers. Each cliff, each cape, each remote inlet. It all reminds you, the edge is where things begin, not where they end. Time flows differently here. It doesn't march forward, it loops, drifts, lingers. Erik laughs when I ask what time dinner is. When it's ready, he says. In the Faroes, you don't rush the moment. You let it wash over you, like tide against stone. And you learn that maybe time isn't meant to be chased. You can't see the wind, but in the Faroes, you feel its color. It's blue-gray on stormy coasts, silver-white in winter passes, gold at dusk. It shapes cliffs and moods, bends trees sideways, and turns moments into memories. Erik calls it the true artist of the islands. Always invisible, but never unnoticed. In an abandoned stone chapel on Vithay, Erik lit a candle for his grandfather. The wind whistled through broken windows. The sea beyond was restless. He said, "This place remembers him better than I can." Some memories don't need words, just space, silence, and stone to hold them. And in that moment, the chapel wasn't empty. The Faroe Islands feel round, not in shape, but in spirit. There are no sharp corners here. Just curved roads, rolling hills, looping traditions. Even time feels circular, memories return like tides, stories loop like songs. Erik says, we don't rush to the end, we come back to the beginning. Maybe that's why leaving feels impossible. Let's be honest, the Faroes aren't for everyone. It rains more than it shines. You'll wait longer than you walk. The food is strange, the roads are fewer, and solitude is louder than any crowd. But if that sounds like poetry to you, then maybe the islands have been calling you all along. Before I left, Erik gave me a stone. From the old path, he said, so you won't forget the walk. I didn't ask what it meant. I didn't have to. It wasn't a souvenir. It was a reminder that sometimes the weight of a place is small enough to fit in your pocket. There's one view I can't forget, from a cliff above Tjornuvik. Black sand, thunderous surf, and the sea stacks Rissin Og Kellingin, the giant and his wife. Erik stood beside me, eyes soft. It looks the same every day, he said. But it never feels the same twice. Some places don't change. But they change you. The Faroe Islands won't beg for your attention. They won't compete or shout or sell themselves. They whisper in wind, stone, silence, and song. And if you slow down enough, you'll hear them. And when you do, you'll realize this wasn't just a trip. It was a return to something you didn't know you lost. Some places wait for you, patiently, quietly. The Faroe Islands don't chase trends or change for attention. They stay. So when you're ready, they're still there. Erik once said, we don't market the islands, we just let them be. And maybe that's the magic. A place that doesn't beg to be loved often ends up being unforgettable. To the one who seeks silence. To the one tired of noise and speed. Come here. Come where the cliffs don't echo your voice, they answer it. Let the wind erase your rush. Let the sea rewrite your rhythm. The Faroe Islands won't give you everything, but they'll give you what you forgot you needed. On my final morning, the sky broke open, a rare sunlit farewell. Everything shimmered, cliffs, sea, sheep, even the mist. Erik said nothing. He just nodded, as if the land itself had spoken. I turned for one last look. Not to remember it better, but to promise I'd return. This is not Paris, not Rome, not London. This is something quieter, wilder. The Faroe Islands, a place where wonder still whispers. And stories don't scream, they sing. If you're searching for the untouched, the raw, the deeply human, then you've found it. Subscribe to discover more places like this, because the world still holds secrets worth keeping.